A newborn boy in 1910, wrapped in a soft pink blanket. Nobody in that room blinks. Down the hallway, his baby cousin, a girl, sleeps under a pale blue quilt. Pink for the boy, blue for the girl. And every single adult standing in that nursery would have told you, without hesitation, that this was simply common sense. Here is the truth history nearly erased. For much of the early 1900s, pink was considered the strong, fiery, decided color. A paler cousin of red, the color of blood, of soldiers, of boldness. Blue was the delicate one, the color of quiet skies and soft devotion, gentle enough for a girl. The rule you grew up believing is timeless was not just different, it was inverted. And the force that flipped it was not fashion drifting slowly with the decades. It was a war, fought quietly on the sales floors of American department stores. And by the time it ended, an entire culture had rewritten what pink and blue were allowed to mean. Forever. So here is the real mystery. If babies do not choose their own outfits, if a newborn has no opinion whatsoever about color, then why does an entire civilization agree, instantly, without question, that pink belongs to girls and blue belongs to boys? Why does a hospital gift shop still separate its blankets that way, 90 years after it apparently had it backwards? Someone decided this, and almost nobody remembers who. Let's go back further than the pink blanket. For most of the 1800s, infants of both sexes wore nearly identical white dresses, regardless of whether they'd grow up to be a farmer or a mother. This wasn't a statement about gender at all. It was simple practicality. White cotton could be bleached clean of the endless spit-up and diaper accidents of infancy, and a loose dress made it easy to change a baby without wrestling with buttons or pants. Boys stayed in these gowns, often with long curled hair, until around the age of 6 or 7, when they went through what was literally called breeching, the ceremonial first pair of trousers. Photographs from this era regularly show future presidents as toddlers in lace dresses, and nobody thought it was strange, because at the time, it wasn't. Color entered the nursery gradually, as a novelty of the new century, and when it did, there was no consensus at all. Different trade publications advising parents and shopkeepers actually disagreed with each other for decades. One widely cited guide for department store buyers in 1918 instructed retailers that pink, being a more decided and stronger color, was more suitable for the boy, while blue, being more delicate and dainty, was prettier for the girl. Other publications in other cities said the exact opposite in the very same years. There was no biological instinct at work here, no ancient tradition being followed. There was only a splintered, half-formed industry trying to figure out how to sell more baby clothes, color by color, city by city, with absolutely no agreement on which shade belonged to which sex. For nearly half a century, this confusion simply continued. Parents bought whichever color they liked. Some regions leaned pink for boys, some leaned blue. Hand-me-downs passed between brothers and sisters without a second thought, because a yellow gown or a white dress worked for either. And this, it turns out, was precisely the problem, at least if you were the person trying to sell baby clothes for a living. Now here's where the story takes its strangest turn. As the mid-20th century arrived and America's post-war consumer economy exploded into full bloom, the baby clothing and nursery furniture industries were sitting on a problem that had nothing to do with color psychology and everything to do with money. Gender-neutral clothing meant families could reuse everything for every child they had, regardless of whether the next baby was a boy or a girl. One crib, one set of blankets, one wardrobe of onesies, passed endlessly down the line. For a booming post-war retail industry, desperate to sell new goods to every growing family, that kind of efficiency was a nightmare. The solution was breathtakingly simple, and it had nothing to do with truth. If stores could convince parents that boys and girls required entirely separate colors, separate toys, separate rooms, then every single new baby, regardless of birth order, would require an entirely new shopping trip. A family with a boy and then a girl could no longer simply reuse the nursery. They'd need to redecorate it. This wasn't a cultural shift discovered by sociologists. It was a business strategy, quietly adopted across department store catalogs, baby product manufacturers, and parenting magazines through the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, until the pink for girls, blue for boys rule hardened from a marketing suggestion into something that felt, to an entire generation of new parents, like it had always simply been true. And once it hardened, it spread with astonishing speed. Because color coding is one of the most efficient marketing tools ever invented. A single glance at a shelf, a wrapping paper, a birthday card, could now instantly signal which product belonged to which child, without a single word of explanation needed. Retailers built entire product lines around the split. Pink dolls and pink bicycles and pink birthday themes on one aisle. Blue trucks and blue baseball gloves and blue superhero pajamas on the other. Parents, wanting the best for their children and trusting what the stores presented as normal, bought into the divide without ever suspecting it had been engineered. There was a brief wrinkle in this story worth mentioning. During the unisex movement of the 1970s, some of this rigid coding briefly softened, with gender-neutral yellows and greens appearing in catalogs again, echoing that earlier era of white dresses and shared hand-me-downs. But the pink and blue divide didn't die. It waited. And when prenatal ultrasounds became common in hospitals starting in the 1980s, revealing a baby's sex months before birth for the very first time in human history, retailers found something even more powerful than a marketing strategy. They found a countdown. Now parents could plan an entire nursery, an entire wardrobe, an entire identity around a color, before the child had even taken a single breath. The pink and blue divide didn't just survive. It became the centerpiece of an industry now worth billions. One that eventually produced gender reveal parties, an invention so devoted to the color binary that families have set forests on fire trying to make the smoke come out the right shade. So the next time you walk past a hospital gift shop, or watch a young couple pop a balloon filled with colored powder to gasps and applause, remember what you're really looking at. Not a truth about biology, not an ancient tradition handed down since the dawn of parenthood. You're looking at the surviving artifact of a retail strategy from a booming post-war economy. A color war fought quietly across department store shelves that won so completely, it convinced generations it had never been a war at all. And that raises an uncomfortable question worth sitting with. If something this basic, this seemingly universal, turned out to be a shelf plan drawn up in a boardroom less than a century ago, what other truths are you living inside right now? Certain they're eternal, when really, somebody simply decided, and everyone else just forgot to ask why. This has been the hidden history of how.